There's no question that at times in my life, partially driven by how passionately I felt about this country, that I worked far too hard, and that things happened in my life that were not appropriate. And I think people have to render judgment. In my case, I've said up front openly, I've made mistakes at times. I've had to go to God for forgiveness. I've had to seek reconciliation.
Welcome back to the Ed Show. That was Newt Gingrich obviously trying to save himself with evangelical voters in Iowa. He's making a sales pitch, but many evangelicals, well, they're not buying it. He didn't sign the family leader's marriage vow back in the summertime, and he still hasn't signed it. Instead, he put out a position paper saying he would uphold the institution of marriage through personal fidelity to my spouse and respect for the marital bonds of others. But his position paper hasn't satisfied some evangelical voters in the state of Iowa. Keep in mind, Gingrich may have hit 40% in the national polls. Now he's at 40. But in Iowa, he's basically tied with Ron Paul. So what's happening here? Gingrich is vulnerable in Iowa. And if neither he nor Mitt Romney wins the caucus, the Republican race could become more erratic than ever. Joining me now is Reverend Kerry Gordon, pastor of the Cornerstone World Outreach in Sioux City, Iowa, and president of Peacemakers Institute. Pastor, good to have you with us tonight. You have got a problem with Newt Gingrich. What is it?
That's exactly right. There's a couple false assumptions that are out there in the media right now. A lot of the things I've been watching on TV and reading in the newspapers. Number one, there's this assumption that, the American people already know what Newt did and we're just past it. I don't think that's true. I think the reason why you're seeing his poll numbers drop is because we have a whole new generation of voters who weren't necessarily paying attention when Newt was in power the last time. And the closer they look and the more scrutiny they give to Newt Gingrich, the less they appreciate his record. So that's one issue. The other issue that seems to be out there is that Newt is trustworthy because he's repented and he said he was sorry. And the thing that evangelicals in particular have to remember is that the same Bible that teaches us to forgive people when they do wrong also warns us that if we trust someone until they have earned it or before they've earned it, we're being foolish and presumptuous. And so when Newt says, "I'm sorry, forgive me," I can say, "Sure, I forgive you, but I don't trust you." And my message to Newt Gingrich and my warning to evangelical voters is Newt needs to be told to go back and run for mayor, run for Congress again. Get some time and prove to us that you're a changed man. I don't trust him because his record is abysmal. And I feel the same way about Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney flips and flops on the issues. Neither one of these people can be trusted. Another thing to remember, I want a level playing field when we come up with Obama. Obama said what he was going to do when he ran for office. Then after he was elected, he's done his very best to do what he said he was going to do. I want the GOP to present an honest candidate that will do the same thing. Because I don't think that we're going to beat Obama if Obama is honest, and we put some hollow, personally driven person that wants power and prestige in the challenge.
In the state of Iowa, will evangelical voters, in your opinion, create a problem for Newt Gingrich? I mean, he's polling very well nationally, but in Iowa, it's different. Are the evangelicals making the difference there?
I believe that they are, because the younger voters are paying attention, and they're starting to learn about Newt Gingrich. And Newt himself said in the last debate that he thinks it's important.
Is there anything he could do to change this? Is there anything he could do to change this?
There's nothing he can do to change my mind. I want evidence before we take somebody and put them in the most powerful seat in the world, before we promote them from former Speaker of the House to President of the United States. There needs to be a change that we can see. And until he runs for a lower office and proves that he's a changed man, it's absolutely inappropriate for him to be the president.
Well, I know that evangelical voters will put a lot of stock in absolutes. I mean, they are very strong in their convictions. How many,
That's right.
and a lot of them will show up at caucus in Iowa. Some tell me upwards of 50% of the people that will be involved in the caucuses will be evangelical Christians. If that's the case, who do you think has the real chance to benefit from all of this? Who do you think the evangelical community and some 200 churches in the Assembly of God, who do you think they'll support, and will they follow their pastors?
I think they will follow their pastors. The real question is, will the pastors lead? And I can't speak to that. I don't know if they will or not. I'm doing my best, and I just don't want to see the GOP come through every 4 years and dangle this little thing about forgiveness and I repented and I'm a changed man in front of all the evangelicals, and then they say, okay, so now forget all the bad things that I've done and make me the most powerful man in the world. Thank you. I think we've got to get past this and not allow the GOP to exploit our people. And I hope the pastors are listening to your show. And I hope they're listening to me on all these radio shows I've been doing all day. We've got to get a noble, honest, trustworthy person to go up against Barack Obama.
Sometimes the mainstream media has a hard time talking about faith because they think it turns people off. I think it's a phenomenal political story. And I'm not quite sure that how could the polls nationally show Newt Gingrich doing so well but then struggling in Iowa? I mean, obviously the faith vote out there has got to do something. I mean, nationally he's at 40%, Romney at 23%. For lack of a better term, you're ready to throw both those top front runners under the bus, and that leaves you with Ron Paul,
That's
Michelle
right.
Bachmann, and Rick Santorum. So do they have a solid chance despite the national polling, in your opinion?
I think so. I think that Rick Santorum in particular is going to surprise a lot of people. I just heard Karl Rove say it last night. I think that's interesting. Rick Santorum has a really good ground game in Iowa. He's really dug in, and he's got faithful, loyal followers. And like him or hate him, Rick Santorum is honest. He tells you what he's going to do. He stays faithful to his principles. And I think that the Christians will probably coalesce behind perhaps Michelle Bachmann as well.
Reverend Kerry Gordon, good to have you with us tonight. I appreciate your insight on this. Thanks so much.